Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, literally world-altering era, the period historians call the long 19th century. And to make this incredibly complex time actually tangible, we're going to use a really fascinating case study, Ukraine. We'll be looking at exactly how a stateless nation navigated a century that completely rewrote the rules of the entire global game. So let's dive right in. To really understand just how much changed during this time, we have to look at how downright bizarre the historical worldview used to be. Listen to this. Muscovites have no intellect, Turk Greeks are lying devils. Now that's not just some isolated insult. That actually comes directly from a table of nations painted by an unknown artist in early 18th century Austria. It was essentially the very first European public survey, categorizing 10 different European peoples and assigning them these incredibly absurd, fixed stereotypes. This table of nations firmly established an East-West divide that was just deeply rooted in the educated European imagination at the time. Westerners, the Spaniards, the French, the Germans, they were labeled as wise, cautious, and witty. But as you look further east, the traits get intensely negative. And the absolute wildest part here isn't just that these stereotypes existed, it's that people genuinely believed they were permanent. If you had the misfortune to be born in the East, society believed you were doomed to those exact traits until the day you died. It was viewed as this inescapable decree of nature. You literally could not change who you were. But, as we're going to see, that stagnant worldview was about to shatter completely. In today's Explainer, here is our roadmap. 1. The idea of progress. 2. The rise of nationalism. 3. The new Ukrainian stage. 4. A globalized people. And 5. The sleeping volcano.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the idea of progress, the hurricane of modernity.
So let's quickly define the exact parameters of our timeline here. Historians call this the long 19th century, and it stretches from the outbreak of the French Revolution in 1789 all the way to the beginning of the First World War in 1914. It was an era totally driven by a double revolution. On one side, you had the Industrial Revolution booming in Britain, and on the other, you had the massive political revolutions in America and France. Put them together and they catalyzed this absolute quantum leap in human history. We transitioned from a rural agrarian society to a rapidly modernizing industrial one. For the very first time, everyday people were migrating to cities. They were learning to read, and they were traveling at speeds their grandparents couldn't have even imagined.
Which brings us to a radical new mindset. The modern idea of progress completely broke the old rules of that 18th century table of nations. Karl Marx actually hit the nail on the head when he said that industrial development offered a less developed country an image of its own future. Progress wasn't just some gradual, slow change anymore. It was an avalanche. It meant more, and more. And crucially, for the very first time, it offered the East an actual opportunity to change its destiny and westernize.
Moving right along to Section 2, the rise of nationalism, the birth of the isms.
Chief among all these new ideologies bubbling up was nationalism. Now I want us to look at this totally neutrally, in its proper historical context. In the 19th century, nationalism wasn't the loaded term we sometimes hear today. It was primarily a revolutionary movement. It stood in direct, fierce opposition to the old regimes of these massive, sprawling empires and out-of-touch aristocratic rule. The Italian nationalist Giuseppe Mazzini perfectly captured the rallying cry, "To each nation, its own state." Basically, nationalism demanded that political borders should finally match up with actual ethnic borders. But as you might guess, that demand posed a massive problem for stateless nations. Nations like Ukraine were entirely missing from that old table of nations. Their ethnic borders didn't align at all with the state borders of the huge empires that controlled them. Plus, they suffered from what historians call an incomplete social structure. In the Ukrainian case, their former nobility and Cossack officers had basically assimilated into the Russian or Polish elites. So what that meant was the old Cossack nation had been reduced to a peasant people. They completely lacked a native aristocracy or a middle class to champion their own statehood.
Which brings us to Section 3, the new Ukrainian stage, shifting borders.
As the old historical players, like the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Crimean Khanate, crumbled and fell away, the Ukrainian lands were abruptly carved up. A whopping 85% of the territory was swallowed up by the Russian Empire, while the remaining 15% fell under the Austrian Empire. So this stateless nation was now literally split right down the middle by two imperial giants.
But this period also brought a massive demographic explosion that completely redrew the map. After the Russian Empire annexed the southern wildfield, it became this giant zone of economic colonization. You can almost think of it like the expansion of the American West. Ukrainian peasants absolutely flooded into the super fertile Black Sea steppes. And this huge wave of peasant colonization actually doubled Ukraine's ethnic territory during this time frame. The imperial authorities really wanted to call it New Russia, but demographically speaking, it essentially became a de facto new Ukraine.
All right, Section 4. A globalized people, the mentality shift.
So, right in the middle of the century, we see the abolition of serfdom, 1848 in the Austrian Empire and 1861 in the Russian Empire. When you combine that newfound freedom with incredible technological leaps like the railroad and the steamship, suddenly the entire world opened up. It became accessible. We see this jaw-dropping mass migration stretching all the way from Edmonton in the Canadian Far West right across to Vladivostok in the Russian Far East. Ukrainians were highly active participants in this very first huge wave of economic globalization, basically transitioning from bound peasants tied to the land to a truly globalized people.
And naturally, with all this physical movement came a really profound shift in mentality. The old agrarian society was absolutely terrified of change because, well, change usually meant starvation or just getting a worse landlord. The peasant ambassador, Mikhailo Kovbasyukak, captured this fear perfectly with his plea, "Let it stay as it was." But then, the idea of progress started offering real hope. Contrast that old fear with the modern optimism echoed much later by Ukrainian rock star Slava Vakarchuk, who sang, "Everything will be fine." That tension, the conflict between the folks who feared modernization and those who aggressively welcomed it, became a literal matter of life and death, and it really drove the internal narrative of the whole century.
And finally, Section 5, the sleeping volcano, the illusion of peace.
Now, we are so often taught that the century between Napoleon's defeat in 1815 and the start of World War I in 1914 was this era of totally unprecedented peace in Europe. But we really need to challenge that illusion. The educated public back then certainly bought into the myth, though. The famous writer Nikolai Gogol depicted Ukrainian landowners as living peaceful, placid lives. To anyone just looking in from the outside, it honestly seemed like time in Ukraine had simply stood still. They viewed it as this prosperous, completely stagnant agrarian paradise where everyone was just totally content living under imperial rule.
But the reality on the ground tells a completely different, much more violent story. Ukraine wasn't some placid, quiet garden. It was a sleeping volcano. Just beneath the surface, all this restless energy was constantly bubbling over. Get this, between 1793 and 1914, these lands experienced a Russian uprising, 4 distinct Polish revolts, 3 massive peasant rebellions, 2 major anti-Jewish pogroms, and 2 full-blown revolutions in 1848 and 1905. This was a stateless nation violently churning, completely desperate to reconcile its ethnic reality with the arbitrary imperial borders forced upon it.
Which brings us to the ultimate provocative question. We've just seen how the long 19th century awakened a stateless people, armed them with the powerful ideology of nationalism, massively expanded their borders, and plugged them directly into a globalized world. So as we look at the immense, violent pressure bubbling just beneath the surface of this sleeping volcano, how will the restless energy of these stateless nations violently collide with the looming geopolitical order of the 20th century? That collision, right there, is what sets the stage for the modern world we live in today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.